when you think of an arpeggio, often we're thinking of a chord that is single notes, starting low and going high, ascending, or descending. I'd like to work with understanding what an arpeggio looks like we just heard a C major arpeggio, what it feels like, and how to start breaking the rules a little bit, how to be more creative with arpeggios, even if you're just playing with one finger on each hand. So this first section we'll learn to take an arpeggio and use the entire harp. We'll go chord by chord. So for those of you that don't know your chords well, or don't know, I guess I think of it as holistic, that you know a chord. C major chord is C, E, and G strings. Chords are built with every other string. Okay, we know that, we see that maybe in our music, but we get stuck with playing just what our hand can reach and is comfortable with. Part of it, I think, is visual. We have this short, almost tunnel vision of where our left hand can reach, and we see our chords that way, or arpeggios. And we get good at either going 3 notes or maybe 4 notes. And it's hard to connect our hands or to see it going down. So I'm going to take you on a little journey, chord by chord, so you really know the chords and you see them, you hear them, you feel them. We'll start with our harps in the key of C major. That means there's no flats or sharps. So I tune my harp with 3 flats. You'll see some of these levers up, but I'm in a key where there's just the names of the notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Arpeggios in the harp, I think, are just wonderful because not only do they sound glorious, but they're so easy to find. Because when you want to know the name of a chord, it's every other string. Arpeggios are built on a straight root chord arpeggio major, basic arpeggio. Every other string. I don't know any other instrument that no matter what key, major or minor, is just the same, every other string. So visually, this can really help us. We don't have a lot to feel or look for, so it gives us a boost to really start to shape them. Let's start with a C chord. Every other string means thirds. 1, 2, 3. So C, E, and G. That's your C major chord. Learn it. Know that C, E, G is C major. Listen to the sound. It's a certain color and sound to what is a C major. Now let's look at the pattern with the colors. A C chord has a red string, and there's white strings on either side of the blue. E and G bracket or surround the blue. Sometimes it's easier to think of the colors when I want to use the entire range of the harp. Take one finger on each hand and think of the C strings, the red strings, as glowing in the dark. Feel that your vision is open completely to seeing the entire range of your harp, and just play with C's. That's easy because it's red. Now there's a lot of white strings on the harp too, but they're all individual. They're related to a different color. On a C chord, we want the E and G, and they're around the blue. So I like to think of them as glowing in the dark. I can look at my harp, and if I make a C chord glow in the dark, I see all the options. Those E's and G's around the blue, like, poke out for me. I want you now to take one finger again on each hand so that we're not stuck in a small range. And just play with those E's and G's. Can you spot them? Can you make your focus really highlight or glow, magnets towards those two strings around the blues. Go ahead, play with it. Pause this if you want, and get good at the E's and G's. Break up your hands. E here, G here. Okay, now add the C, red and around the blue. Go up, go down, mix them up, be a little bit daring. Try even a few notes. Moments of beauty. I'll show you a few examples and then you can pause and experiment. So C in E's and G's in any order. Try that. Okay, now I want you to try again, thinking of some sense of phrasing, a sentence you're creating. Music is very much a language, and there's pauses and breaths, phrases, and maybe just 4 or 5 notes. Don't make a long phrase, and see what shapes you can make, and listen to the sound. It's a C major chord, if it's C, E, G, no matter what the order. There's names we'll put on them so people have the right bass string they want to play, but it's still a C chord. Those are the ingredients. Every other string, starting with C, it's called C because that's our root. C, E, and G. Mix them up and see what you come up with. One of the nicest things, I think, is to take the middle note of a chord, C, E, G, E is the middle, and put it up higher. So you're going C, G, E. The more you space out the bass, the more beautiful little magic phrase, arpeggio, you can make. We're thinking of arpeggios in a more holistic sense. Sort of a chord, it's a group of notes. These are our ingredients. Now what can we do with them? So C, G, E. Maybe something else. And pause after each one so it doesn't become a scramble. It's not about speed. I want you to really just immerse yourself in the sound of a C major chord. What does C chord sound like? What kind of combination can you come up with that also has rhythm or breath? It's instant beauty. Arpeggios are sort of foolproof. If you give a kind of push or a pull or do something with it so it's not just completely straight, you have instant beauty. So enjoy this. Enjoy being able to see a C chord. Little combinations. Spend some time listening to the sound of a C chord, sinking in. It's C, E, G. It can be in any order. Your whole harp can ring in an arpeggio. And if you stay right now, just for a brief moment, with one finger on each hand, you tend to be a little bit more daring, and you can experiment more. A low note. High notes. I want these strings to just glow in the dark for you. I suggest we're going to do a little bit more on the C chord and then go with each chord. You spend a day on a C chord. Know it. Know it by its CEG. Know that you can go in any order. Look at your harp. Know it's red, and the two strings, E and G, circle or are on either side of the blue string of F. That's a C major chord. We find the chords by taking a string, C. We want a C chord. You build up thirds. Thirds are every other string. We count numbers, and each string counts. So 1, 2, 3 is a third. We have names for thirds. Don't let it bother you if it just seems like it's too much information, but we have major thirds and minor thirds. So a major chord, arpeggio, is built on a major third, 2 full steps, C, D, and E, and then a half step and a whole step for the minor third. It's harder to see in the harp what is a half step and what is a whole step. So I think it's very important not only just to kind of memorize, there's not many chords to know, but also to really hear and identify immediately, this is a major arpeggio. The difference between major and minor is the middle string, whether it's a half step higher or half step lower. So I don't want you to just work on a C major chord. When you're learning C, work on C minor. The middle string is the E. I have the lever up, it's E, and I can make it E flat. The longer the string, the higher, lower the pitch, right? I can play C minor. Some of you tune your harps without an E flat. There'll be other minor chords you can work on. Don't bother tuning your harp for this. Those that do tune your harp in 3 flats, make sure that you spend time when you learn your C chord to know the major and the minor. C minor has that E flat. Get to know the sound so you can recognize instantly, is it a minor chord or is it a major chord? One string. The middle string makes the difference. You don't need to switch all your levers to be in the key of C minor to make a C minor chord, just that middle string. Now, before we leave the C major chord, I would like to work with 3 fingers. Third finger on the C, second finger on the E, and thumb on the G. It's one of the first shapes you learn. It's very comfortable. There's space between the fingers. We learn to be precise, pop our fingers in, our thumb is high. We want to be accurate. Sometimes we, in the very beginning, we're just catching the strings and we're so happy we have the right strings that that's our priority rather than the tone or molding it or shaping it, because even straight, it sounds good. But what if from the very beginning, as you're learning chords, you start to think about not being even? We don't speak evenly, we have breaths, we have accents. We don't want to really play completely evenly, except for some classical music, and even there's nuance. Think about playing an arpeggio, left hand to right hand, C, E, G, C, E, G, and maybe giving more time on the first note, the low C. Following the rest up. And don't make that top note loud. If you make it too loud, that's often what gives us a sense of rhythm that isn't really this buoyancy that we want when we play, especially up high. Even if you play less, thinner strings will have a reaction that creates a louder sound, even if you're playing it the same as the other strings. So you want to almost think of maybe pressing or squeezing some strings more. Get to know the feel of a C arpeggio, left hand to right, or all the way up your harp. And notice what strings are louder, what are softer, and think about the control from the very beginning. I'm going to do slowly a whole arpeggio. Left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. I'm going to notice my third finger as like a magnet to the red string. The other two circle the blue. And I'll work on seeing it, hearing it, and not playing it really like it's an exercise, but like I'm making music from the very beginning. Lower strings last longer, to sort of settle the sound. I'll go slower down here. Maybe I'll push a little faster. Go softer. Doesn't really matter. I tend to give a little bit more time on the bass because it's almost as if we need to digest, to understand that string, and we're just feeling like it gets muddy or a blur if there isn't a split second longer. Not always, depends on the piece. Descending is harder. I think it's easier for the hand. The thumb can go down and then the other fingers pull in easier. We just don't practice it as much. Try going down, descending. Maybe one going up, one going down. Play around with it. Know your sequence.